who had never before contributed to her, and somebody, the head of that organization, Randy Best, who was in fact a Bush pioneer. So it seemed that Ms. Landry was trading campaign contributions for an earmark.
How do you go about, do you contact her office?
We did not contact her office. What we did was there was a series that ran about this in the Washington Post, and based on what the Washington Post reported, and then we did our own digging on looking at her own campaign contributions, looking at Federal Election Commission data. We put all of that together, and then we wrote a letter to the Department of Justice asking for an investigation into Senator Landry's activities.
So what's happened?
Nothing's happened, and I think in large part because the statute of limitations would have run by the time we had complained about this.
How big is your organization? How much money do you have to have every year to operate?
We're pretty small. I think people would be surprised to know. We have, I think, about 13 people in our office here. We also have 3 people in an office in Colorado, and our budget is about $3 million a year.
Why Colorado?
We had initially decided to try and see if Colorado could serve as a model for other states. Did we want to open other state programs and see if we could do what we do at the federal level at the state level? And the answer is yes, we can. Most states have things like election commission data, campaign finance data, and open records laws that you can use the same way we use them federally. But what we've decided is we're not opening any other offices because it's very expensive and hard to maintain.
You have on the list another Democrat, Daniel Lipinski. What did he do wrong?
Right. Mr. Lipinski, member from Illinois, had, I think, a series of issues with a top staff member who was both working for Congress at the same time as he was trying to bring back money for a smaller city in Illinois. I think it was Oak Park, Illinois. And that violates all sorts of ethics rules. It also seemed that Mr. Lipinski was taking in money on some occasions when he was trading activities for it.
What happened to that? This is from their 2008 most
Nothing happened
members.
to that.
Does it, when you name somebody corrupt and there's nothing that's happened, is there a problem there with kind of accusing someone without convicting them?
Well, a couple of things on that point. First, I think that it is members of the American public should know what their members of Congress are up to. They should have to, these members should explain their conduct to the folks back home. So when we point out that there are problems with these members, the hope is that they will have to explain it to their constituents, and if there's really not a problem, so be it. But we don't just pick these out of a hat. We base these on things like stories that are written about these members' activities and campaign finance data and their own financial disclosure information. So we base all of this information, then we put together a report saying, hey, folks should know about this. To us, this looks like a problem. Now, that brings us to a whole other series of problems, which is the House in particular has an ethics process that's just been broken for 15 years or so now. So no matter what a member of Congress has done, the House Ethics Committee won't go after them. So basically, unless a member of Congress has committed something so egregious that it rises to the level of a crime where the Department of Justice gets involved, they pretty much skate free. But my view is just because the House isn't going to do its job, it doesn't mean I'm not going to do mine.
You used to work for John Conyers,
right?
And you worked for Chuck Schumer when he was a member of the House. What did you learn from those two gentlemen? And is it difficult for you now, looking back at them, and if they did something wrong, would you nail them on your website like you did everybody else?
We absolutely would nail them like we do everybody else, but I would of course say that that is more difficult. Obviously in Washington, loyalty is valued above almost all things, and it is hard to take on your old boss. On the other hand, I have a very different job now than I did when I worked in Congress, when my position was then to support whatever their position was, and now my job is to point out any unethical conduct by members of Congress, so I take that seriously. I think the thing that I learned from Chuck Schumer, which I think anybody who is in Chuck's orbit learns, is that the media can be a very useful tool. And you can make your case by going to the American public, even if you can't get, say, a legislative change or you can't get a legal fix. So even if a member of Congress isn't investigated by the House or Senate Ethics Committee and the Department of Justice doesn't indict them, just by highlighting their bad conduct, we might be able to work a change where their constituents are aware of it and asking questions, and perhaps even push a corrupt member out of office.
What kind of restrictions do you have? You're a 501c3?
We are a C3.
Tax exempt foundation?
Right.
How far can you go?
Well, we're strictly nonpartisan. We take on both Republicans and Democrats alike, and that's one of the requirements of a C3 organization. The other is we don't get involved in electoral activities. So, for example, we never say, don't vote for X person, but we say, well, when you are voting for X person, you should be aware of all of these facts. We're allowed to be issue-oriented, but we can't get involved in you should vote for or not vote for somebody. And because of that ban on electoral politics, we try not to take action, say, 60 days before an election, so that we can't be perceived as trying to influence an election.
What do you think most members, and you were up there for a number of years, think about the ethics process?
I think they think it's annoying, and it nags at them. Members of Congress tend to think, I didn't come here to police the conduct of other members of Congress. And they feel like it's like being in high school and tattling. They're not interested in filing complaints against each other, and they don't think it's what they're there for. They also think that groups like mine use this kind of material against them so that their political opponents can run against them based on ethics and make that an issue. So I think they find a lot of it unfair. But it's my view that you should be clean as a member of Congress, and we all, as American citizens, have a right to expect that.
On one of your links, I came across governmentdocs.org. What is that?
That is a website we started in order to collect all the documents that we get from the government. For example, we do many Freedom of Information Act requests a year, and we get literally thousands of pages of documents from all sorts of different government departments. And we wanted to put them up on a website where they were easily searchable, more than just in a PDF format where you usually can find, the way you usually can find documents, because this makes them more accessible. People can read them and tag them and perhaps use them for an entire other purpose. We've also started getting other organizations involved and have them putting their documents on the site as well. The goal is that this could be a repository for a vast collection of government documents that people around the world could access.
When I got on governmentdocs.org, I came across all kinds of other names up at the top. And it just struck me that none of these existed. I know when I came to town years ago, Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Project on Government Oversight, the Public Citizen has been around for a long time. That's the old NATO organization, and now Joan Claybrook and Sidney Wolf and others are involved in it. Sunlight Foundation, that is how new? That's Ellen Miller's operation.
Yeah, I think the Sunlight Foundation, which started after we came in, I believe may have started around 2006.
So, and another one was American Rights at Work, and that's one I wanted to ask you about. I know this is not yours. David Bonnier, former member of Congress, is, I think, chairman of that operation?
Yes, I think he is.
But what I found interesting on there is it said, we support the Employee Free Choice Act. Is that allowed on these websites? I mean,
well, we don't control what anybody else puts on the site. They're allowed to put whatever they want to put up, whichever documents they choose to put up, and we just make the site available. And we've invited, by the way, a huge spectrum of groups. We aren't even interested in only having liberal groups or nonpartisan groups. Any group in Washington would be welcome to join us and put their documents up on the site.
But I guess I didn't see that on your site, but are you allowed under the restrictions? Because what I wanted to get to is that a lot of the contributors to all these organizations on the right and the left end up being political people.
Right.
And it's a way for them to support, and correct me if I'm wrong, support politically certain points of view through this, other than giving it to a candidate.
Well, as a C3 organization, you are allowed to support certain issues, and so you can. So that's not certainly a problem. As I said, the real ban is on getting involved in partisan politics and electoral politics. But to say that you support a particular issue, like there are many C3 organizations, for example, that support environmental work or support work on behalf of animals, all sorts of things.
What pushes your button? What issue the most?
What issue the most? I would say.
Go ahead.
I would say for the work that I do at Crew, the thing that pushes my button the most is members of Congress who simply deny that there's a link between the campaign contributions and the financial benefits they've received and the legislation and earmarks they're putting out there.
And from what you observed all these years, how many of them that you've found that do this get caught and get punished?
A small fraction get punished. I mean, first of all, you have to realize that the way the American political system is set up, this is the status quo. Members of Congress are routinely trading campaign contributions for legislation, and when they deny it, I always find their denials laughable, because if if it was really true that there was no connection, why is it, for example, that defense appropriators are getting so much money from defense contractors who are saying not giving any money to members of the Judiciary Committee? Obviously, there's a connection there.
On your list, these 6 Democrats you have, and then we can go with some of the Republicans. Another